need to understand your objectives and understand the fundamentals of whichever agribusiness you're partnering with. What are their objectives? And I think that I can answer some of those questions on behalf of Harvest. And it is that we are serving the excluded women in agriculture, especially the women in rural areas who have limited access to finance, to trainings, and then to premium markets. And it's on those three anchors that we are anchored on. So thank you for that. And yes, you've heard it all. Agriculture, if done right, recall that's the key word. If I will emphasize on that, if done rightly, can be represented in your investment portfolio. At the end of the day, it's even impact investment in our opinion. So you are strengthening a sector that is feeding the nation, that's feeding the world, ensuring food security, and then it gives you financial returns too. Thank you so much, Mrs. Akpabio. And then forgive me, let me just quickly, so just before you think that, this beautiful woman here just gave me, just shared some nuggets with us. Why should we take it? You should take it because Mrs. Enobong Akpabio has over 3 decades in agriculture. And I'll just quickly, do an abridged introduction because I saw the introduction and it's quite lengthy. And like, if we take this today, we'll probably be here till tomorrow. She's done that handful of work. Great work, ma'am. So I'll quickly just run through her profile. Enobong Akpabio is an agro entrepreneur and a business consultant. She has developed the knowledge, interest, and passion over the past 3 decades in human resources, business consulting, entrepreneurship, and the zeal to help entrepreneurs grow their business successfully. She's the CEO of Visionage Agrotech Farms Limited and Organic Grain Animalia Farms. She's a member of the following bodies: member International Christian Chamber of Commerce, member NECA's Network of Entrepreneurial Women New, member Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, fellow Institute of Agri-Business Management Nigeria, and she's executive member African Farmer Stories Initiatives. African Farmer Stories Initiatives is, they are celebrating their 1-year anniversary this month, right? Congratulations on that, ma'am. And thank you for all you do for this community. We are proud of you. We appreciate you. Thank you for leaning in. So I'll just quickly ask another question. Remember, participants, if you have questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat box and we'll take it. Today, we are talking about unearthing opportunities for women in agriculture. We're looking at both sides of the divide. And the first question we asked was, is it even viable? Is agricultural viable? And can it be listed, in your investment portfolio? And Mr. Akpabio had mentioned that, yes, it is done well. It is viable, with keyword on if it is properly done well. That is, you have to understand the business you are partnering with in the agribusiness investment, and you have to understand their objectives. So I have another question just before we go to my other beautiful panelist, Sarah Odende, and this is still for you, Mr. Akpabio. According to the Food and Organizations report for Nigeria, women in farming, that is women farmers, just have 14% holding rights on lands. You'll be surprised, just 14% holding rights on lands. And this is mostly caused by the selective customary laws that deprive women of access to owning on inheriting lands. You'll be surprised how active that is in many parts, of the country. What are the chances of remedying this unequal access? We are asking this because that in itself is a fundamental issue with women in agriculture. Do you see any opportunities of remedying this unequal access? What do you think majorly about this?
Okay, thank you, Shalak, once again. The FAO report is actually, we believe that it is more than 14%. Let's just go for 14%. You see, our customary laws are not written in our statute books. You won't find any of those things in the Constitution. The Constitution is very clear. It says that all of us are to be treated equally. There should be no discrimination. So if another gender has access to land, a woman should also have access to land. So it's not something that the law permits, but it's something that is practiced, in a way that sometimes even educated people do it, and we wonder what they stand to gain, what really is the fear. So because it is not in the statute books, they can be challenged. They can be challenged in our court, and they are being challenged. They are being challenged even until recently. We got information in local government close to mine. A lady got judgment in her favor for her sister's land. They were actually just the both of them, both girls that their parents had, and their parents are late. The sister, she was single. She had been so successful, and she had property, houses, land, and all of that. So when she passed on, the nephews, the uncles and nephews wanted to take over her property, and the sister resisted it, and they went to court. And guess what they said in the court? That this sister who is contesting the other sister's property, she's been married out of the family. She has no right to her sister's property. The sister wasn't married, so when she dies, everything she has comes back to the property to be inherited by who? Those who didn't have anything to do with her growth. You know, so these things are being challenged. You could see the pettiness in some of these things, and our courts are actually giving justice, you know, to the victims. I'll have to put it like that. So especially when it comes to land ownership by inheritance, you find the male children, you know, actually going to, saying they're depriving their sisters of property. So one of the first things we need to do is to educate the girl child. We need to educate the girl child, because when the girl child has education and the girl child knows her rights, the girl knows what to do, because nothing stops government from me buying land from government or from another landowner. So when I'm educated, chances are that I'll probably be able to do better. And when I want land, I would have the money to buy mine, and nobody can stop me from having land in my own name, in my own identity. Just like this lady's sister. It wasn't family land that she inherited. She bought her property, she built property, she bought land, you know, she owned it. So even when you now do that, you strive and you labor and you get your own. Some things, customary laws still want to deprive, you know, your dependents, or your family of that. So the girl child needs good education, which is what this sister had. She was able to fight it to the very end because she knew that it was wrong. So we need to educate the girl child. We need to educate everyone. We need to even educate the boy child too. That look, these things, customary laws are in conflict with our constitution. You cannot be depriving your sister, your mom, the female members of your family of, access to property and land. So we need education. Secondly is that we need the government, the NGOs, private sector organizations. They can acquire land, intentionally. You intentionally acquire land so you can distribute them to the women. We've done a lot of that in the past, where we partnered with some organizations who wanted to provide economic empowerment using agriculture for women, and they acquired the land. They actually procured the land, and then we distributed it to the women who participated in that project. And after some time, they now own it. It was a lease to own kind of, and they now own it. So if they couldn't have land, by inheritance, they have land now provided for them, because if they were to go buy those lands on their own, they probably cannot afford it. So the government has land that they normally lease out to farmers, and women are also beneficiaries of such gestures. But we can also have NGOs, we can have private sectors. You set up a project, you acquire the land, whether you are leasing it from the government, because it's going to be a long lease, and then you can share it. You can actually have women access it so they can do their agribusiness ventures.
Thank you so much. You did great justice to that, actually. And yes, we agree that it's got to be done with arms linked, especially, you know, with the government and with government bodies and private bodies too. So thank you so much for doing justice to that. In case you're just joining, this is Women Talking Finance by Harvest, and today we are talking about unearthing investment opportunities for women, that is farming in hills. That how can we, yourself, a digitized woman, participate in agribusiness impactfully with financial returns? And today we have two gorgeous women that are farming in hills in person of Mrs. Edubonga Pabio and Mrs. Sarah Odinde. Mrs. Pabio had been, you know, discussing, sharing gems with us about the viability of agribusiness if done well, and then, you know, talking about the limitations in farming, especially for the women on the fields, that is especially as it concerns ownership of lands and land rights. Thank you so much. I'll quickly go to Sarah now. Sarah, hi Sarah. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Thank you. Another amazing farm like you. All right, so I'll quickly introduce Sarah to us. Sarah is a resounding voice and advocate of youth inclusion in Africa's agribusiness sector. Sarah Odinde is key in agro-food and food sustainability. Our unrelenting quest to vet African harvesters and agribusiness online hub for agri stakeholders across the value food chain, farm to table, providing bespoke digital agri services for stakeholders in the sector. She partners with USAID through Feed the Future to engage youth empowerment and food security initiatives. It's a pleasure having you here, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Women Talking Finance, themed on unearthing business investment opportunities for women in agriculture. Thank you so much. All right, so Sarah, my question to you is this. I see you lipsticks on, right? Beautiful hair, the typical modern woman picture. And I know that for the modern woman, the modern woman can be typically skeptical about farming. I mean, some of us were not even brought up in that line of career or passion, while some of us were. So what do you see? What are the intersections? What are the opportunities? How can a woman in the boardroom, how can a woman entrepreneur participate in stimulating food production for Africa and beyond?
Okay, thank you, Shalakwe. Thank you, everyone. A modern woman would necessarily not want to go into farming. At least I don't want to be under the sun. I don't want to till the ground. I don't want to weed. I don't want to harvest. I don't necessarily want to drive the tractor and all that. The agric value chain is actually wide, farm to table, and there are different opportunities. Stimulating food production by venturing into different aspects of the value chain. It includes food inputs, which include fertilizer, seeds, tractors, machineries that are useful for food inputs, to primary production, which involves the farmland, greenhouse, and the likes. We have food processing, which includes processing of different foods and crops in different value chain, the maize value chain, cassava, cashew, and the likes. We also have logistics and transportation, which actually involves warehousing, cold chain logistics, that is having refrigerated trucks or having a cold storage system for preserving food produce, which actually helps reduce post-harvest loss. We also have exports and also shipping of farm produce abroad or to different countries. So the value chain is actually wide, and a corporate woman can actually invest in these areas of value chain. Thank you, Shalake.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for that input. You say that it is big enough, you know, as the sky. So wherever you want to perch in this entire but talking about viability, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, women should just be comfortable, sitting at the processing side of things, and they should be limited processing and marketing. Do you think that there should be gender stereotypes to even the value chain itself? Do you see women thrive? Do you truly see women thriving more, in some parts of the value chain, or you think that women can actually thrive wherever they deem fit?
Okay, so basically, I believe in gender equality, which is the SDG 5 and SDG 10. As an organization, we support women in our initiatives. We make sure that women are always included in our initiatives. One thing I want to point out is that there is no aspect of the value chain a woman cannot play. According to statistics by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in 2019, 75% of smallholder farmers involved in agriculture in Nigeria are women. And these people are the people who are involved in harvesting, involved in production, involved in the food that we have, that we eat in Nigeria, and we also export. So there is no stereotypes. It's all about breaking the glass ceiling. There are actually women who are actually involved in food production, from chocolate value chain, cocoa, to processing. There are different aspects of the value chain that women are involved in. And I actually support women being involved in food production. So there is nothing like, oh, it's a man's job. Women actually have the platform to explore and succeed.
Thank you for that, Sarah. And I'll just take a question as a fallout of that statistics, quite interesting statistics, actually. Oxfam had said that about 75% averagely, that is about 75% of the entire rural agricultural population is made up of women. So what it means is that women are participating more in agriculture than you even know or can imagine. So how can we enable more of these women, and how can we be a part of this ecosystem? So still talking about that, about the labor force, a lot of these women it's been revealed that they struggle to access affordable financial services to help develop their farming operations and livelihood. They are limited majorly in funding, in training, extension services, and then in access to markets. How do you think that all of this, or some of this, can be actively addressed, Sarah?
Okay, so I'm an advocate of that agriculture cannot be done in a silo. That is, you can't sit somewhere and buy your land and say, oh, I'm doing my farming and this is how I want to do my thing. I actually advocate for women, and actually men and youth in agriculture, to actually join clusters, join associations. There are lots of associations in Nigeria that you can join. There are farming communities and clusters that you can join, because when we are talking about access to finance, most times, most funding opportunities are actually done through silos, done through groups. Access to finance are actually done through groups. So when you want to get your farming opportunities under the Sterling Bank, for instance, Sterling Bank is doing an initiative with NISA. You have to come as a cluster, because there are situations whereby people run away with the money they get to finance their farms and all that. So I would say that it's a multi-stakeholder thing. The private sector needs to be involved. We have platforms like Harvest that actually talk to these rural women and actually help them to make investment opportunities that are viable for their business. Now is also the aspect of the government actually really helping the female farmers. There are different initiatives by the Central Bank of Nigeria. There is a bank, a microfinance bank, that is actually created to support smallholder farmers. That is the Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk Sharing System for Agricultural Lending, NISAL. It has been successful since its inception, and there are different schemes that are available under the microfinance bank. There is the AGMEIS scheme. There is different schemes that are available there that women can actually have access to it. And NISAL is actually available in all the local government areas of Nigeria, because there are actually 9 post offices in this local government. So they have access to go to the 9 post offices and actually access information that they need to get finance for their agribusiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for that. I am thinking that Mrs. Akpabio might want to add to that, but just before I go to her, I noticed that a few people just joined. They joined while you were speaking. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another, edition of Women Talking Finance by Harvest. And today we are talking about how women can participate in, how they can unearth investment opportunities in agriculture. In case you don't know about Harvest, Harvest is a financial platform for underserved and excluded women. We are women focused, we are for women, and we are focusing on addressing financial challenges with women on both sides of the divide, that is supply and demand. In the conversation we've been having today, for instance, we discussed the viability of agriculture as an asset class in a woman's investment portfolio. If you're wondering what an investment portfolio is, by the way, you should hang around us more so that we'll tell you more about all of this. You can visit our website at hervest.ng. We talk about diverse areas of finance, talk about pension today, talk about retirement tomorrow. And for us, we're just about having a wholesome woman who is financially dependent. And then we focus on smallholder female farmers for their empowerment in funding, training, and access to premium markets. So today we have 2 beautiful panelists who are farming in hills in terms of Mrs. Sarah Odende and Mrs. Edobong Akpabio. Sarah just spoke, about how we can counter some challenges in the agro-business. And I suspect that Mrs. Akpabio might want to add to that. But before she takes that, I would also want to add a question that she can take in succession. And that is, in our opinion, what are the 3, I'm sure that there are myriad of challenges, but what are the 3 challenges that smallholder women farmers encounter, and how does she think that this can be addressed? Thank you so much, Mrs. Akpabio.
Okay. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Ma.
Nice to be on the same speaking platform with you.
Yeah.
You are doing wonderful work. I admire you a lot.
Thank you.
Sarah is right that the opportunities for women in agribusiness is huge, so huge. Now we've been socialized to see ourselves as being engaged in farming and processing. But even if you're looking at those 2 areas, it's still very, very vast. And women on hills, I can tell you that you can do a lot. What differentiates other women from the women in the rural areas is the deep pockets. The women on hills have more money, have more exposure, probably better educated than the ones in the rural areas. So if we are speaking to the women in the rural areas, I know the options I can give to them and they can still do profitably. The women on hills, hey, their own prospects are very, very, very high and very vast. For instance, Sholakwe, a woman on hills, you can go into ornamental agriculture, you can go into beekeeping. Those things don't take too much of your time, and yet they give you a lot of money, a lot of money. So sometimes you can go into technology, they give you there's huge money there. Like I mentioned earlier when I started, I said you could, if you're looking for oil and gas in agriculture, it's there. If you're looking for power, it's there. So women on hills can even invest in those areas. Those may be beyond the capacity of the rural woman, but it's definitely within the capacity of the women on hills. So we can look at a whole lot, just like Sarah has said, and not just keep ourselves, just looking at primary processing, farming. Hello, I think we should have left that alone. We have enough women population to be able to grab all the other areas that I've been hearing about in the last 10 years. I need to tell you that I'm still learning, despite the fact that Shalakwe has hyped me a lot, that I've been in this industry for such a long time. I'm still learning. I'm still picking up information, and I can tell you that Sarah and I will probably be as valuable to other women as the knowledge and the experience that we have gathered over the years. So there's a lot you can do. It must not be limited. We cannot be limited any longer to farming and primary processing. We're way beyond that now. Thank you, Shalakwe, for making me to add, to Sarah's wonderful submission. Now, the three challenges that smallholder women farmers encounter, in my experience, having worked with them for some time, reasonable amount of time. Number one is the level of authority over land. And let me qualify that. The smallholder farmers in the rural areas sometimes most of the time they use family land. So some of them have access to land, but it's not their own. It's not theirs to take a decision outside of what the family wants them to with it. So there are many interferences. And may I let you know that they are given that land by virtue of the fact that they are married to somebody in the family. So their spouses actually hold the rights to that land, not those women. So we still back to access to land where they can have control. They don't have control over these lands. So the first challenge they face is access to land and control over that land. And that's why it takes me back to the solution, takes me back to what I had mentioned earlier, that we need to have organizations intentionally acquire land that these women, can use and have control over. So they can say, this is what I want to do. They can, for instance, in family land, they can't say, I want to build a hut. They need to discuss it. So many, things like that. Oh, I want to go and take a loan. Oh, you want to take a loan to buy the land? It now becomes an issue. So they need to have land that they can not only access properly, but they can control what they want to do with the land. Take those decisions that they have to for the business that they want to do. The second challenge that I have experienced working with them is poverty and illiteracy. Because they are poor, they are limited in how much they can grow. The illiteracy level also is very high among these women because Shalakbe, people like you and I, we don't want to do farming. And that's the option they have in the rural areas. That's the option smallholder farmers have. So at their level, they are poor, which means they don't have access to the kind of financial and other capacities that they need, they really need to be able to do their best, grow and scale. So there's illiteracy and there's poverty. So what's the solution? Solution is education. And I'm not talking about just academic education. I'm talking about education, academic education. I'm talking about skills training. I'm talking about knowledge, all of that can help them to understand and appreciate what we need to, especially now. We are being told that let's head back to the areas, connect with our when we've worked on this and teach climate smart agriculture. But when talking to men, said, look, what's how grandma did, that's how my grandmother did, that's how my mother did, but it's not working. So we are going to have such a resistance because of their lack of education, their poverty. But those things by education, skills training, vocational training, knowledge impartation and all the rest of it, so that when you build capacity, they can actually deploy properly and be able to grow and overcome those challenges. The third one is access to funding. And it's actually as a result of number one and number two. If you have land that you don't own, fund providers are not going to attend to you because they don't know what will happen to the land. There's uncertainty around what you're going to invest that money into. So they will be careful about dealing with you. So, and these women don't have land. So what would they do? How would they be able to do what they want to do? Secondly, the fact that because they are poor, because they're illiterate, business is not formalized. So, but for what Sarah said, working in clusters, their access to funding will be almost zero. They can't write. They don't have a business name. Look at some of the funding initiatives that we have. You need to provide a name. You need to provide a address. You need to provide where the farm is. You need to provide, all of those formalized requirements. They don't have it. So without working in clusters, they have to work on their own. They cannot access some of the financial initiatives that are out there, and there are many, really, there are many. But you look at it and say, okay, the solution, microfinancing, just give them just about what they need. They don't ask for much. Some of them, 20,000 can go a long way. Some of them 50,000, not like people like us that you and I that will be looking for millions. These ones are just looking for a few thousands, and they cannot even get it. So microfinance was supposed to address that for them. But may I let you know, Shalakwe, that microfinance is too high for these women, especially for farming purposes. It's very high. They can't afford it. So we need to look at, we need to look at the whole thing about microfinance. But think it through. End of the day, we are going to have to fall on NGOs, charity donors, project-based donors, so they can fund some of the things. For instance, funding for an acre. So maize, you can have about 10 women on 100 acres of land, put them together and let them cultivate maize. You provide them with inputs, and then you offtake the harvest from them. Those are some of the things that help them to grow. They understand that terrain. They can work with that, but then it helps them to grow until they are able to, get a little bit of experience and form. They don't have records. Funding financing organizations are asking for records. They don't have such things. So I think microfinancing needs to be tweaked a little, to look at them. But thank God, just like Sarah said, working in cooperatives, working in clusters helps, to provide that. But how many of them? How many of them? So the question flew in and said, is there any cluster in Port Harcourt? I always tell women, look, if you can't find a cluster, form one. You can't find any cluster around you, form one. There are many women many people who are waiting to see how they can plug in to a cluster. Thank you very much, Shalapi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking a shot at that question. I was going to come to that, but thank you. And I was going to, now that you took one, let's just, take another from the audience. We have questions here and we'll get to them quickly, but there's a closer question too. Addressing these challenges, you've mentioned funding, you've mentioned high illiteracy level and all of that, but there's a key one, and it is not just even though it's more prevalent, to these rural women, but it's not one that is just to that sector of women alone. It is a common thing, and that is the access to markets. There's a question here saying, how can one get a regular demand for her farming produce? So what are these issues around, access to markets, and how do you think that it can be solved as well?
For the smallholder farmers in the rural, I still want us to differentiate. The smallholder farmers in the rural areas, there's a rural economic system. I need you to understand, there's a rural economic system. The way it is managed is very unique. You know that they have communities that their market days, they have market days. A lot of them are not connecting to industries. They are connecting to domestic or commercial pets. So those market days, there are people that come there, on a particular market day, they buy off a lot of farm produce, be it palm oil, plantain, maize, cassava, or processed cassava products. So they have that, they understand the economy. So what they need to do is get products to the community markets, and they are good to go. So you won't hear an average rural woman say that she has a problem of market access. It is educated and elite farmers like you and I. We are the ones that have that problem because we cannot flow in that kind of community market system, because we are going to be dealing with middlemen, in quotes, and we don't trust them. We always have this feeling that they will undercut, they will undercut our prices. They are not offering us good prices. We have invested so much, in what we are doing, because we want to do things right. We want to be able to have records. We want to be able to do a good farming practice, all of that, which the rural women is not concerned about that.
Yes.
So, and those, yes, and those middlemen are concerned about that either. Oh, there's a noise at the background.
Yes, there's a noise at the background. Okay. I think the person is muted now.
So the rural farmers, they understand that, but you and I, we can't work with that setting. Let us even bring it back to Lagos, where I am. I really cannot find myself selling my products at mile 12. They will never appreciate what I have done. So I have to look for my own unique market. It is that unique market that is creating a market access issue. Now, let me tell you why I mentioned very clearly from the beginning that you want to add agriculture in your investment portfolio, do it right. If I want to go into agriculture, for instance, I have to know my market. I have to identify my market, and I have to build, relationship with that market. What happens with you and I is that we just have this impression, and I really wonder where it came from, that farming is something everybody can do. So you just walk into a land and you plant whatever you want to plant, or you rear whatever livestock you want to rear, and you just believe that everybody is looking for it. Then when it is time for harvest, you just discover that you don't have where to sell it. So we are the ones that have market issues. The rural smallholder farmers, the smallholder farmers in the rural areas, they already have an economy that they plug. We are the ones to plug in into a different basis. Our products probably for industry, probably a unique kind of domestic or commercial market. We need to identify. If they are not there, we create it. What is not there that can be done, you create it. And that's why a lot of these digital marketing portals are very good for us, because we can use them. They can get to customers that we cannot reach in that volume, and then we can fling our products.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You actually threw something up, and that's true. But for some of this, the way Harvest handles that is that we farm in clusters based on demand, right? So before we go to farm, we have identified an off-taker. We have done a deed for the off-taking, and so that way we mitigate against post-harvest challenges. So we keep working, and that's why we say, with Harvest, most of the things that have been mentioned here today, doing these things in clusters, coming together from the funding side, all of these challenges are areas that Harvest is highlighting and bridging. And we know that we can't do it alone. We need all hands on deck, and that's why we keep calling to women like yourselves, women like all the participants here today, and say, you know what, let's do it together. Because there's strength in our numbers. Thank you so much. So in addition to all the beautiful points you've made, Mrs. Akpabio, I'm sure that Mrs. Odende here would also want to talk about how we can create premium market access for female farmers. So, Mrs. Akpabio had mentioned that, it's not a challenge for them, but okay, let's even imagine that some of them, especially at the local markets, a participant mentioned here and said that the local market isn't competitive at all. Yeah, so how can we create premium market access for, let's say, female farmers generally, Mrs. Odende?
Okay, Shalakwe, thanks for the question. The significant thing I want to say is when you want to farm, when you want to go into farm production,
Yeah.
you have done your due diligence first, which is setting up your business plan and everything. There is no how you would make a business plan that doesn't have a target market definition and market analysis. So I'm always surprised when people come and say, I have this farm produce, I'm unable to sell it. And that's why at African Investors, most of the people who are registered under us, they don't have issues when it comes to marketing their farm produce. Even before we start creating ads for selling it, we've already cashed out, we've already made the deals, we've already sold. One thing I want to say specifically is when you are planting, there is a specific time before your produce is out. What are you doing regarding how you are going to sell it? Where do you want to sell this market? Because you cannot just go into agriculture and just start tilling the ground or start building greenhouse and you don't have where you are going to sell it. Madam Akpabio said something. She said that my 12 is not at 10. Because believe you me, this agri thing is very funny. Most of the time, people rush into farming a produce because of what everybody is doing. Case scenario, cucumber. There was one time that people don't plant cucumber, but my dear, immediately one person starts doing adverts that cucumber is the cash cow, everybody would rush cucumber. Tomatoes, greenhouse, everybody will rush. Then there will be market glut. Where are you selling your farm produce to? What are you creating a market for your brand? Are you using digital tools to sell your brand? There are actually platforms that you can use to sell. And you can also have your own platform whereby you are going to use to sell your produce directly. The likes of Fort Worth Farms, Niger Pride, these guys are using their platforms to sell their brand. And they don't have issues with post-harvest loss. So this issue of target markets and target assets, it boils down to the CEO. You are the CEO of your company. You are the one that is going through sweat and tears to make sure that your produce comes out fine, following global best practices, making sure that everything is put in place for you to harvest your produce. So marketing it should not actually be an headache for you, really. You have to have all these things in place before you even say you are planting your produce. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Have a plan. You know, it's interesting. Even out of agriculture, within agriculture, you have a business plan that doesn't have a target audience. Is that even a business plan, right? So thank you for thank you for sharing that much. You've done great justice to these questions today. Thank you to your beautiful self and Mr. Fabio. I think it's safe to go to the questions in the chat room now, so we quickly take them and we don't. Okay, well, Rejoice here says, I'm a farmer. I think that's a comment and not a question. Thank you for that comment, Rejoice. Someone said, okay, I think this is Kemiraj. He said, thanks, right? How can we build a software that lists those market days? That's quite interesting. Do you know of any, Sarah, I think you mentioned something in this line about digital tools. Do we have any existing one at the moment? This sounds like a great solution, actually.
Okay. Yes, you see, these market days are actually interesting. For Ijebu, for instance, there is a day they do their market day. For different farming communities, there are days they do their market days. And also, the Lagos state government over the years has actually brought these farmers into Lagos State. into some specific areas for them to sell their produce. In 2013, there is what we call the Eco Farmers Market, which was specifically created in strategic zones in Lagos State. One is in Alausa, one is in Aja, one is in Surulere. And those farmers markets were used to sell farm produce. So there was, the Lagos State government had relationship with farmers from different communities, and they actually bring their produce to the farmers market on specific days whereby they sell the produce. So there are actually ways that applications can be done, but you actually have to visit those specific farmers markets and actually know their farm market days before you develop the application. That would.
All right, thank you so much. So there's another question here, and I think this is for Mrs. Akpabio. It says, are there associations fresh farmers can join to access training, sharing of knowledge? Of course, yes. We've got Agrotech here, we've got, so, but Mrs. Akpabio.
Yes, there are lots of those activities going on. There are lots of them. All we need to do is just look out for them, especially if we belong to business associations or trade groups. I don't expect anybody that is into poultry value in the poultry value chain not to be a member of the Poultry Association of Nigeria, for instance, or someone who is in the cocoa value chain not to be a member of the cocoa, association of Nigeria, because that's going to get first-hand information. Many of these capacity building initiatives are first passed through those associations. I actually get to see them from my business associations or from social media, and getting them on social media and spreading. So I think what people need to be, my late father used to say, you need to take yourself seriously, then other people will take you seriously. If I'm looking for something that is very important to me, like my business, for instance, I really, this is what I require. I need training. I need to have some personal development. I will go looking for where I can get them. So from business day, they hold conferences upon conferences on different areas. They had one recently on waste, and you might be looking and saying, what is the waste in agriculture? I tell you, Shalakwe, big money is residing in that place. And women in heels need to look at that area very well. So we need to be serious with ourselves. Why do I get to social media to go look for politics and where insults are being thrown up and down, and where people are talking about politicians and talking about, the scary details are there. I didn't say you should close your eyes to current affairs, but what I'm saying, take yourself seriously. Look for the serious things. Ask people. Many people just think that I should just drop on their laps. No, I follow the kind of people that will get me the information that I need. I know if it drops on them and they either share it or I will see it. So I think that's one of the things we need to do. And then we check, even if you want to Google, I tell you, Shalakwe, you want to go into cassava value chain, just type there opportunities in cassava value chain on Google. It will tell you, and even tell you where there's a recent training about to go on, and all of that. So we need to take ourselves seriously. That's what I would say. And then be more versatile. Books, sometimes they prop up. I just see something, one small clip in a water page, talking about one event that is going to be on. I'm like, wow, and quickly. How many email messages I receive on some of the programs, I tell you, and that is because whenever I see an email and I just register, or I register, and then before I know what is happening, they have me on their email list. So they'll always send me information that has to do with developments from their end, and I get to see. So we can, like I said, let's take ourselves seriously. There's a whole lot out there. If you need anything, tell you, if you need anything, Somebody told me that, look, you see this avocado. I don't have to plant avocado. I'm going to position myself to export avocado. Can you imagine? That was like last year. I thought she was joking.
Yes.
You know, this year she told me that she has locked into like 5 farmers who can give her like 1,000 avocados every half year. 1,000 avocados every year. And still in paid employment. So Shalakbe, how did she get of that? She did some research.
Yes.
You know, she dug for information. So we need to do that too. Business, we need to do what business people do. Business people don't just wait for information to come to them. They look for information.
Thank you. And for some people, this is the first step. I'm sure that there are some people that it was that curiosity and that interest that led them here today. If you're one of those people, note that today is the day that you start actively. Thank you so much for those words. And still speaking about environment, there's a question here from Oluwaseun, and she's saying, what impact has the persistent attacks on farmlands had on investment in the sector? Also, have you seen reduced or increased participation in the sector by women as a result of these attacks? That's, you know, a really deep question, Mr. Fabio.
Yeah, she's right. I want to believe that it's a she that asked questions.
Yes.
Right. It has affected production, especially has affected. In fact, last night I got a message. I had to send it to my client. We were about to start a farm for a client, and I got a message last night that the area is now it has now become a danger zone. Kidnappers are there, picked up 2 farmers. You know, just around the local government area where their farm is about to start, and we were the ones to set up and manage the farm. So of course, we can't continue. We have to postpone, you know, what we wanted to do, just so we can see what happens in the security situation. Now, going to the smallholder farmers, it's been a big hit on, because there is no security presence in those areas. And they've done this, everybody has left them alone because nobody wants to go. Their area has been quiet, and these women have been out their farming activities. And recently, they are attacked by criminal headsmen, they are attacked by thieves, they are attacked, you know, left, right, center, they are raped, they are killed, you know, they are maimed. It's so bad. It's really bad. And you know, in those communities, most of it is the women that go in those farms, and the farms are quite a distance from their homestead. So now everybody wants to have their farms and their homes, but there's just so much so much activities they can do in commercial quantity, you know, compared to those lands they had that are much bigger than the ones around their homestead. Everybody wants to be safe. So I tell you that a lot of farmers have had to engage. I have friends who have disengaged completely, especially the ones in the north. They have completely disengaged. So we have a lot of last line fallow because they can't work because of this insecurity in the land. So that is what is affecting the food supply. So if one of the things you'll notice is that there's a increase of food, because demand is far higher than supply. 220 million Nigerians want to eat. There's not enough food for 220 million Nigerians. So what will happen is the price of the small one that is there will go up. And as many people as are depending from production activities, so also processing activities will also be, you don't have raw materials, you know, to process, and so many other parts of the value chain. The supplier of inputs, who is he going to supply to? You know, because there's nobody that is ordering from you. So you have stock, you can't sell. It's crazy, it's really crazy. May I let you know, Shalakwe, also, part of the value chain is job opportunities.
Yes.
So the more farms are are functioning, the more people are being employed. The less
directly
farms
and indirectly.
True. The less farms that are functioning, the less people will be employed. So what do you think is happening? So government needs to step up game, because if we just say, look, this is my livelihood, enough is enough, and we all arm ourselves, I don't know where we are going to get to. but it's really so bad. A lot of people are getting off, farming activities, and it's dangerous for food security.
Please.
It's dangerous for food safety too.
It is, sadly. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm sure that a lot of us here can relate with the hike in food prices. It's almost unbelievable. The other day, I wanted to buy a medium-sized pineapple, 900 naira, 800 naira. I recall that that's the same size we used to buy for about 200 naira just a few years ago. It's quite sad because this is food. We all eat. We have to eat. Okay, so I have another question here, and this is for you, Ms. Odinde. And it says, how can poultry farmers, she's specific, Ms. Allen is specific. She says, how can poultry farmers access government loans, e.g. CBN, NISA loans?
Okay, there are actually different platforms. These loans are actually done by independent, how would I put it? Independent training and development consultancy firms that actually help in training people on how to access the loan. So we have some centers that I can actually give after this training. I would put in my email, the person can actually write to me. So these centers, they actually, you actually come to them, you pay a token, they help you develop your business plan, your market, and your, how would I put it, your agri-business, the stage it is, and all that. They know the parameters that NISAL is looking at for their different schemes and the likes. So they help you package your proposal to suit the loan, and you actually belong to a group, a cluster. So when you're actually assessing the loan, you assess them in batches. So also Sterling Bank is doing something through the swapping, yes, the swapping initiatives. So they are also partners to that work with Sterling Bank to actually give out the loans. So I will put up my email.
Okay, that's fine. Please, it would be nice to have your email. We have people who said they will be happy to connect with you. There's another question here for you as well, Ms. Odinde, and this Joyce is saying, can we have a comprehensive list of agribusiness areas currently in demand in Nigeria that women can invest in for good returns? We can only advise, So Sarah, and she says there's another part of the question, how can we help the rural urban women farmers who can't continue farming activities due to the unrest in these areas and the value chain that's affected?
Okay, I would answer the first question. Regarding the list of agribusiness areas currently in demand in Nigeria, I can actually send a document regarding that. That is the Agric value chain, the opportunities across the value chain, grouped according to farming inputs, then production, processing, logistics, and warehousing. I can send that after this program. Regarding the second question, this is a national issue. I am not the Minister for Agriculture, but actually there are different things that can be done regarding this. It's a multi-stakeholder issue.
Yeah.
So the developmental partners that are actually helping us, the African Development Bank, the USAID, it's everybody's responsibility, because we are in Nigeria, and believe you me, you are in charge of your own security.
Sadly.
If you have to have your bodyguards to follow you, if you are going for special events, you need to have it. If you have to get your mopo to get a contact from the Nigerian army to actually secure your farm, if that's what you are going to do, to get someone on your board member for your farm that is in the military, you have to do it to secure your farm. So I would actually say it's the work of the government to actually protect us, but we ourselves, we need to protect ourselves. Madam Akpabio said something earlier that they were meant to do a farm setup somewhere and they got a security notification and they had to halt. So you also need to actually know the farming environment that you even want to invest. You have to, a lot of things are happening. Yesterday, I was very moody because someone called me and told me about a big poultry that actually employs a lot of youth and women in Shaki, and they've folded up. You just get calls every day that are actually depressing. So it's everybody's, how would I put it? It's a multi-stakeholder thing. The developmental partners, the private sectors, initiative, the government, to actually, the work of the government is security, but we are in Nigeria. We all have to work together regarding the security issue.
And I think in addition to that, thank you so much, Sarah. We can't overemphasize what you and Mr. Fabio have been saying. That is, these things are better done in clusters. You know, they are better done as a group. And if you look around, there is no group start one. We need our arms linked on this project. Kemi Raji says this is serious, but what are the alternatives to farmland? Here in the Western world, the alternative farming. Sarah, do you quickly want to take that as we're wrapping up the session this evening?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Kemi Raji. One thing we also need to know is that agriculture is actually wild. We have climate smart agriculture now. We have greenhouses. So you can actually set up a greenhouse behind your house. You can actually have home gardening whereby you plant at your backyard. You get plastic bottles, buckets that are leaking. You actually create your own garden. You plant your tomatoes, you plant your vegetables, you plant your herbs. We have aquaponics, which is the farming that involves planting and also having a fish farming. So the waste from the fish goes to the farm to actually irrigate the farm. We have hydroponics, we have soilless farming. There are different aspects of agriculture that can actually be done in the urban area. I think I've answered that question. On to you, Sholakwe.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you to everyone. You know, we love this audience, very participatory. Thank you so much for, you know, joining in. I would encourage the panelists to leave their names on social media, as people, a lot of people had mentioned that they would like to reach out. We see, you know, we've got to do it arms linked together. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. If this is your first time on editions of Women Talking Finance by Harvest, where we discuss topical issues around finance for women, that is on both the supply and demand side. It's a pleasure having you here. To know more about us, you can check our website at www.harvest.ng. That is HERVEST.ng. And we are Harvest NG on social media as well. It's a pleasure having you all. If you're a woman who would like to do better with a financial journey, we like to be financially independent and would like to participate in farming for women, you are at the right place. Harvest is for you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Thank you for so much value gotten. Thanks to the panelists and organizers. It's a pleasure having you, and we look forward to seeing you another time. Mrs. Akpabio, thank you so much. We can't appreciate you enough. Mrs. Odende, thank you for farming in heels, looking pretty, and yet, you know, farming up a storm in the fields. Thank you so much. Mrs. Akpabio, are you still there? Thank you.
Yes, I am.
You. All right, we appreciate you. Thanks a lot, ma'am. We can't thank you enough. Thank you to everyone who joined this evening. It's a pleasure. My name is Sholakwe Akimpelu. co-founder and CEO, Harvest, and I say that it's a pleasure to serve and it's a privilege having this conversation with you this evening. We look forward to having you next time we have another edition like this. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a beautiful evening and a great week ahead. Yes, so someone is asking, we'll be sending this to, we'll be sharing to your mailboxes. If you registered for the program, we'll be sharing to your mailboxes. Former Alicia, Vivian, thank you, Kemi. I'll get in touch. Mojisola, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful week ahead.